High levels of agility is what makes the biggest difference between elite and sub-elite players. Think David Clifford, Adam Screeney, Conor Callaghan, their ability to create space, evade a defender and get a score away. It's not just the ability to change direction, but it's changing direction at really high speeds, at the right time, in the right direction and the right moment of the game. That's where agility and change of direction differs. It's about the decision making, the intent, the timing, all of the various contextual factors that influence it, not just how quickly you can change, stop or start. We're going to look at the key differences between agility and change of direction today, but most importantly how you can look to develop agility as a player or in the players you're coaching. Agility can be broken up into two different areas or components. On one side, we have the change of direction speed, and we look at a few examples of that now in a second, and you can see that's broken up into the general parts of your body, how quickly you can move in a straight line, but also the specific aspects of strength to help you speed up, slow down, accelerate, decelerate, re-accelerate again. But on the other side, what's often neglected is the perceptual cognitive speed. This is all the stuff that drives the decision making, the patterns of play, knowing what to do at the right time in a particular situation based on the specific sport you're playing, but also pattern that out or breaking it up into offensive and defensive categories. Some classic examples of change of direction tests, or what are known as agility tests, can be seen in the NFL Combine, and are very popular amongst some of the traditional American sports anyway. We look at a couple here now. We'll see first of all the three cone drill, even though it has 4 drills. And essentially where you're just going out and back and then around a cone. See how quickly you can move around those. A little bit of turn, a little bit of twisting. Some very short distance if you accelerate and decelerate over. Another real nice one here, particularly when used as a test, is the 5-10-5. And you'll see it zoomed out here now in a second, where you're moving 5 meters, 10 meters back in yourself and finish off 5 again. And that's good for checking one side versus the other to see how it works. And finally, even though it's termed the Illinois agility test, it is not an agility test. It has just changed direction because, again, there's no decision making, there's no reactive component other than you start when you're told to, and also takes a little bit longer than the previous two. If we look back at our figure on what makes up agility, particularly the change of direction side, we can see that doing a lot of those drills can actually be quite useful, particularly when it comes to developing the foot placement, the stride adjustment, the body lean and posture, particularly that front of the foot, hips down position, and the various levels of how we can demonstrate the different physical qualities. I've already mentioned acceleration and deceleration, and they're made up of the different factors of strength, like concentric, eccentric and eccentric strength. We can zone in on those through different drills that we can do. We're going to look at a couple first that possibly aren't the best, and then we'll look at a couple more that might be more useful to develop change direction ability that then can be used to develop broader agility. I went searching online for a few different examples of agility change of direction training, just to contrast what's out there, see what we can learn from it, but let's apply it then to the principles that actually do drive change of direction. So the first one we look at here is, and this comes from America, I'm not even sure who these are, but they're looking at some stuff. We can see like the leg is outside the hips, but it's not really having a beneficial effect because it's happening in the wrong order. We want the foot to be planted and move the hips as opposed to hip moving and drag legs with it. Same here, it's not really of benefit. I honestly think this one here is a bit of a piss take. I can't see how it's of any benefit whatsoever to anything sport related. There are a couple of exercises in this video that may be of some little bit of benefit. We see these here now because if we break it down to like you're accelerating, you're planting to stop, slow down and re-accelerate again, whether that be forwards or backwards, we can see here the land each time is going to train that concentric ability to absorb force when you're slowing down. His hips are really high on it all, so I'm not really sure the benefit that way. But same here, when he steps back and comes forward, that bit of a hop and stick is going to drive some little bit of strength there to help when it does come to changing direction at a much faster pace. I found one then on like the French team training, and the majority of it isn't super helpful. There is one little bit at the end, but even, and look out what the coach is cueing here because I don't think it's hugely beneficial there either. See here, I'm Pogba, remember him, like the foot position here is just all wrong. Same here, it's constantly the legs leading the hips, you're trying to lift it. The hips don't really move much side to side throughout all this, where the feet are trying to weave in and out, and ultimately wants to be driven by something different. There's a little bit of positive in this one, because as they go out to that blue cone, you can see him dropping the hips, planting the feet, decelerating, accelerating out of it. But again, it's the coach. You can see he's giving most of his emphasis there around the little bit over the poles, as opposed to when you want to drive into, get low body position, put the front of the foot down towards the blue cone and accelerate back out with that low position, coming back up to high. I did find some good stuff from Les Bellman. I have some of one of his videos here if anyone wants to copyright. That's where it came from, so apologies for that. But you can see they take a very different approach to it. It's around using the feet to drive the hips, as opposed to trying to bring the hips and pull the feet along with it. You'll see at the start here how they're coaching just that planting of the leg to absorb the force of the hip, and then learn to drive back off it, both in a forwards backwards direction here, but also in the side to side that we saw at the start. Now it's just some initial work around cueing that, getting the positioning right, lowering the hips but having the feet ready to absorb that force, starting slow and building it up to faster and faster and faster. And you see they're bringing it into more of a side to side then. What's also important is they bring in the perceptual cognitive bit as well, which is what's really important. To start off a lot, they're still doing the change of direction, in terms of going forwards, turning off to the side and stopping. But now you're looking at someone. You're both trying, as the attacker, trying to lose them, but in a defensive position, you're trying to follow them as well. And they still bring in, and you can see zone in on the low body position here, planting the foot, getting low and absorbing force, like the hop in the first one. Then they progress it on to something a little bit more specific, and you can work the same in your sessions. Start really general, as in general movement abilities, bulldog, whatever game you like. Then bring it into something more specific, whether it be hurling or football related, and you can zone in even deeper then on are you doing something more offensive based or defensive based. In terms of offensive, you want to try and create that space, plant the foot, drive away from it, create a gap, have speed coming in, versus the defensive where you're focused on the footwork, watching the hips, the turn of the hips, so you're ready to shadow them and watch where they're about to go next. Some suggestions around leveling this up, or to make it a part of a little bit of a systemized approach in your training are, to start off, do some simple change of direction stuff, or even just slowing down and stopping, accelerate, decelerate, stop. Then bring in your change of direction, do a bit of a reactive component, and then bring in a little bit of a decision. Think of the 5-10-5 we saw at the start and make that a mirroring competition. Two players are facing each other. One person is the leader, one is the follower. When the leader goes, the follower has to follow them. So it's the same change of direction, out 5, back 10, and back to the 5 in the middle. But the defender doesn't know which one they're going to go, while the offensive, the attacker, has to make that decision themselves. Then you can make it a little bit wider or more broken by starting to bring in your sport a little bit more, adding in the ball, adding in a goal, adding in a pass at the end. Obviously instilling your correct tackling technique based on what the rules are, if we can refine down what tackles are in some of the sports, and slowly starting to make it more and more and more open, adding in maybe 2v1 situations, because ultimately 1v1s can actually be quite difficult for the attacker or the offensive player to get some form of successful outcome unless it's a massively open space and they start really wide in the first place. And then you start layering that out to 4v3s, 5v5s, and ultimately out to your broader game again. If you found this video looking at agility and how it differs from change of direction uses, please check this one here where you learn a bit more, and feel free to make suggestions below on other topics you would like covered.